Well, it's no secret that anybody connected with baseball and who's interested in it knows that you put a little something on that baseball to keep the pitchers from goosing it up and just to make it better grip. You put this mud on there. But what the secret is where that mud comes from. It just so happens, though, that I've got the guy whose family owns the business that supplies the mud to Major League Baseball and the minors. Jimbo Bintliff, my special guest here at 102.9 MGK. It's so good to have you on, Jim. Thanks for talking.
It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure.
Well, I know from because we're Facebook buddies. I know from our Facebook conversations you're a rocker, so you must listen to MGK from time to time.
Yeah, whenever I can, whenever I get in the area in Burlington County, I do, and I try and pick it up on the internet down here, but my connection isn't always real great, so a lot
Down
of
here,
buffering.
sure. By the way, Jim has pulled up stakes and gone down to the shore area, and I certainly don't blame him. Now, this is an amazing substance, and I'm sure you may have heard from Jim. You've seen him on CNN. He's been on NBC. He's been New York Times. But is it true that the quest to money up baseballs came from a guy who actually got beaned by a pitcher during a game?
Well, yeah, actually, it was pretty much a direct result of a guy named Ray Chapman who got beamed in the 1920s, and he ended up dying from the injury that night. At that point, the baseball league decided they needed to use fresh baseballs for every game. Problem was, fresh baseballs had a real slippery quality to them. So, after some experimentation, it was the mud was discovered by Lena Blackburn, and it was tested out and used for the first time in Shibe Park, Connie Mack Stadium.
How about that? Right, because it was a suggestion of Lena Blackburn, who's with the Phillies at the time, right?
At the time, yeah.
That's unbelievable. Now, he started the business, and he passed, and then someone else inherited it. Well, his name was John Haas, is that right? And then Haas somehow got it to your family. Now, how did that transition from Haas to you guys?
Well, when Lena was doing it in the early days, my grandfather, John Haas, was helping him. They were like best friends all through life. And in the mid 60s, 1965, Lena was getting too old to do it. He didn't have anybody to leave it to, so he gave it to my grandfather, who was the other half of the business anyway. John Haas was my mother's father, and in 65, he was just as old as Lena, so my grandfather couldn't do it either. He passed it over to my mother and father, and in 2000, it officially got turned over to me, but I have been doing the dirty work for probably since 1980 by myself.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. I was doing the work. My father was the head of the company.
Was Lena like a scientist? So how did he know that spot that he found was just the right combination of what he needed?
I don't know what made him realize it. He was just a ball player. He was just a hard-nosed ball player. Came out of Palmyra, New Jersey, and it was a fishing hole that he used to go to. And it might have been from the way his feet felt after he went in the mud, and or how his shoes turned out after he went in the mud. I'm not sure what made him try it, but they were searching for all kinds of things, and he said, "Well, let's try this." And the rest is history.
You go out and fetch all that stuff in the summertime, right?
Actually, we harvest. When I took over, we were harvesting one time a year in the fall,
Oh, the
late
fall.
summer or fall. Um, the business has grown enough that I make a harvest trip probably, well, at a minimum once a month now
Oh, how
because
about
it's so popular.
that was going to lead me to my next question. Is weather a factor? Like there have been years that you couldn't get it right because of flooding or who knows what.
Yeah, weather plays a big part in it. I'll notice if we have a drought season, a really dry season,
Mhm.
the mud gets real sandy and real hard to work with. But on the other hand, if we have a flood season, I have mud till the cows come home.
Well, it seems like it's been that way lately.
The biggest effect is the moon affecting the tides because I collect it below high tide line.
Interesting.
So at low tide, I'm out harvesting. If if we've had like the major storms we had in January, I guess.
Mhm.
I went out and tried to collect mud, and I couldn't because the tide never got low enough to get mud. So the tide and the moon and the weather, how much precipitation we have, that affects it more than anything.
Now, what's interesting about this mud too is it doesn't smell, right? Like over time, it doesn't get stanky.
No, it doesn't, and that's one of the magic things about it. I'm not even sure why, but
I mean,
it
I
it,
can flood
it
my basement, and within 2 weeks, I can start smelling it. And it's like,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah, it'll have when I harvest it, it'll have a little bit of a musty odor, a little bit of a river type odor. But one of the first processes I do is I let it settle, drain out the river water as much as I can, and I replace it with fresh water, and I let it sit and I let that drain out so that this smell hasn't been an issue.
that's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. This, by the way, is Jim Bintliff, who's my special guest on 102.9 MGK. Jimbo, as he's known, is the mud man. He's the man who supplies mud to Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, and they use it on every single baseball that is brought into action in a major league game. And what I think the cool thing is it's not exclusive to baseball. So what a great idea or great gift for a baseball fan. You can actually buy the mud that they use by going to baseballrubbingmud.com. You can also get a history of the company and the family, how it started. It's fascinating, fascinating stuff. And now I've found out, Jimbo, that I didn't even know the Eagles use it. Football teams use it too on footballs.
Yes, yes, that's relatively new. That's maybe 15 years ago. I had a couple pro teams contact me, and what they did, they had found it by borrowing it from their sister city team, baseball team, and trying it on the footballs. Um, Back years ago, when they prepare a football for the game, they would just take it out of the box and grind it into the turf on the field, the dirt and the grass. With the advent of all the new AstroTurf and no more natural grass, they were looking for another way to treat the balls to get them so the quarterback was happy. And they tried some mud, and it was a couple teams, and then the next year was a couple more teams, and now I would say it's all the teams, but I don't ship to all the teams. There's people out there who make a living preparing footballs for a football team. They'll get the footballs, prepare them, and then sell them to the football team. So, it's colleges, high schools. I have midget teams calling me wanting a little bit of mud to trip because they want to have the ball like the pros.
Sure, it's
So,
got to be authentic. It's got to be the real thing. Well, Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you. I know this is a busy time of year for you. So this was being taped in mid-March. Where are you in the process now? Have you shipped the balls already to the teams?
Well, spring training, they got all their mud for spring training. This week, I expect to get my order for the home parks. I'll be sending mud to every baseball stadium in the country. The teams have already been ordering for their minor league affiliates. Yeah, this is a busy couple months. January, February, March. Yeah.
Well, that's why we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. One last question for you, Jim, because
Okay.
obviously what you do is such an important part of the game. What's the best perk Major League Baseball has given you as a result of being the Mud Man?
Well, things like this,
Oh, well, thank
get
you, but come on now.
talk,
The World Series take
speaking to people about it is a big thing. I get I can buy tickets for any game anywhere in the country on a phone call. I do buy them, but it doesn't matter sold out, not sold out. I can always get a ticket. I've been to the World Series, all the World Series games in Philly, 1980, 2008. I get to do that, but that's a big money operation. They're not real free with giving things away.
Well, you'd think maybe the guy who supplies the mud could get free tickets, but hey, that's all right. You can get tickets anywhere you want, and that's totally fine. Is there a chance for when you decide you're not taking that trip anymore, it's going to continue through the generations of Bintliffs?
Yes, yes,
Excellent.
yes. I have my youngest daughter and her husband, and they'll be the next in line. And they've already got a son who's not quite tall enough to carry buckets yet, but as soon as he can, he's going to be working for me.
Love the sound of that. Jim Bintliff, my special guest here at MGK. Rock on, my friend, and thank you for coming on and talking with us today. Good luck to you.
Thanks, Andre. Good talking to you. Bye-bye.